4 days before the election, they have among the worst numbers ever in history. Nobody's ever heard. They did 12,000 jobs. Normally you're 250, 300,000, 400,000. They did 12. Think of it, 12,000 jobs. And it's hundreds of thousands of jobs less than it should be. Think. Because they're pathetic. They don't know anything. These people don't know anything. She's a very low IQ person. We don't need a low IQ individual. We just had that for 4 years. We don't need this. But those numbers are so low, they're almost disqualifying. The only thing good about the numbers I'm going to give you now are that it's great to run against the people that created those numbers because it's terrible. And just think, a few months ago, they fraudulently claimed, remember, 3 months ago, 818,000 jobs. It was a fraud. Everything they do is a fraud. And then they go after people that aren't frauds. They're a fraud. The whole operation stinks. But they created 818,000 fake jobs. And they thought they'd get away with it, and a whistleblower blew the whistle. And they blew the whistle. They thought they were going to announce. They call it a correction. That's a hell of a correction, by the way. That will be the world's biggest correction in history. What do you think, Ron Johnson? That's the biggest correction. Corrections are meant for like 700 jobs, not almost 1 million jobs. But now they've just revised the past jobs number, right? Last month. And they revised it downward by 112,000 fake jobs. So these guys are playing fast and loose. These are crooked people we're dealing with. The people we're running against are crooked as hell. So that's almost 1 million fake jobs. And I think it's something that Congress ought to look into, really. They ought to look at who the hell ever heard of these numbers? And they wanted to revise them after the election. Could you imagine if you lost the election and then 2 days later, we've revised the numbers downward, 1 million jobs? Nobody's ever heard of it, but we thank you, Mr. Whistleblower. Some whistleblowers are very good. Kamala's failed economic agenda wiped out nearly 30,000 private sector jobs and nearly 50,000 manufacturing jobs in just the last month. Do you believe this? Nobody's ever heard of these numbers. Even I know they're incompetent, but I thought they were sort of riding along a little bit on what we built. With almost 100,000 manufacturing jobs killed since the beginning of the year. 100, that's a lot. 150,000, these are all the numbers coming out of the so-called government. Great government we have. 150,000 Americans joined the unemployment rolls last month. This is like a depression. And there's nothing, no event. I think they're trying to blame it on the hurricane. No, that was, a relatively small area. No, not the hurricane. Not the hurricane. They're the hurricane. And nearly 250,000 people dropped out of the labor force, which is almost unheard of.